So I don't know how many people from outside the United States are joining us tonight, but I just want to say, you know, Guten Tag, Buenos Dias, Ni hao, Sasrikal, you know, a number of different greetings to all of you who might be online with us. And we really appreciate your support because it's so important, as you all know, to support these programs. So, I think that kind of sums it up in a nutshell, that we here at Peters Valley, every single one of us, are so appreciative of all of your participation. And we could not do this without all of you. And so I hope you enjoy the program tonight. And we're going to start off with Suzi Ballenger. So each instructor is going to give a 10-minute presentation, and I'll provide a little bit of a bio beforehand. And then at the end of the program, you will see their contact details. So if any of you have questions or you'd like to engage with them further and so forth, you're welcome to do that. So Suzi Ballenger began weaving in 1982. She studied at Haystack Mountain School of Crafts, was a visiting artist at Penland School of Crafts, and completed her MFA at UMass Dartmouth, for artisanry and fibers. She has patented designs for weaving tools that redefine the grid structure of woven cloth. Excuse me. Suzi has been published in the Textile Society of America, Handwoven Magazine, Fiber Art Now, and Rhode Island Monthly Home Design. She supports her own production studio and teaches weaving for all levels. Her other interests are paper making, gardening, hiking, biking, and swimming in the ocean early in the morning, which is pretty much perfect for this kind of situation that we're in. Welcome, Suzi.
Thank you very much, Bruce. And thank you, Lakota, and all the staff at Peters Valley for giving us this opportunity. I'm going to try and share my screen. I was having a bit of difficulty a moment ago. And let me give this a try. Oh, thank you. My name is Suzi Ballenger. And thanks to that great introduction, you all know that I'm a fiber artist, a hand weaver, and a paper maker. I knew I would be a paper maker. I knew I would be a weaver when I first stepped into a small studio on the Bay of Fundy in Nova Scotia in 1981. That inspiration of that first meeting never stopped. And 38 years of textile experience later, I've had success, experiments, unfinished ideas, and constant learning. My mission is to share my skill and passion for the vanishing language of hand weaving. This language, to me, speaks to the quality of life I want to live, and I strive to keep it current and necessary. It's interesting that all cloth, no matter how or where it's made, has to be touched by human hands at some point in the process. In my studio practice, I use simple structures to make working textiles, and for me, my hands and feet are the entire process. And I allow the wild, playful rhythm of color to make the patterns for me. I want what I make to be used a lot, and I want it to be loved, and I want it to be passed on. Responding to the personality of the fibers and the rhythm of the loom creates a fluid relationship between myself and the machine, and it directs my method. And so it makes it really slow cloth making. Like, there's no automatic fly shuttle, there's no computer, it's all done with my hands and feet. And whether I'm using bold colors or subtle naturals, my aesthetic is informed by freedom that I feel when I'm outside. And I get excited when I see textures and movement revealed in nature. Diversifying my understanding of fibers that I work with helps me focus on both artwork and studio practice, side by side. I love the strength and character of plant fibers, such as linen, hemp, nettle, abaca, kozo. Those individual traits become more fully expressed when given the freedom to seek their own path away from the rigid tension of a frame. The repetitive movements of loom weaving parallel for me the rhythmic flow of paper making. They both involve a reverence. And they exist side by side in setting the fibers in paper slurry. And so I find space for both of them in my studio. Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you, Suzi. Thank you very much for that.
Thank you, Bruce.
Yeah.
Thank you for being patient.
Oh, no, thank you. Patience is what I have a lot of, you know. I didn't even have to feel like I had to call upon my patience on that. It's so beautiful. Our next presenter is going to be Ken Burton. A professional woodworker since 1984, Ken Burton is spectacularly overeducated, holding an associate's degree from Bucks County Community College in fine woodworking, a Bachelor of Science degree in Industrial Arts Education from Millersville University of Pennsylvania, and an MFA in Woodworking and Furniture Design from the School for American Crafts at RIT. Ken's studio, Windy Ridge Woodworks, is a multifaceted endeavor reflecting his wide range of interests in various craft media. At the heart of the operation is the design and construction of studio furniture, custom cabinetry, and wood sculpture. Ken has authored numerous books and articles, and after a career in public education, he is now a senior editor with Woodcraft magazine. Welcome, Ken.
Am I on?
Yeah, I can hear you.
That's good. Thank you, Bruce.
You're welcome.
Good to see you. Wish we could be there in person. Let's see. Is it green? Well, let's hope you can see that.
Yes, we can see it. Thanks, Ken.
So I realized today that it has really been 38 years since I got involved in this. Actually, a little bit longer. My father believed in, letting his children explore. So when I was about 6 years old, he gave me a set of real tools and pretty much cut myself with all of them, including the hammer. But eventually, I learned how to use them. And have been at this professionally for about 38 years. So in the early 80s, listening to Suzi's talk, and I was thinking about my experience in the early 80s. There was a woodworker, his name was Wendell Castle, who just passed a couple years ago. But at that time, he was very prolific. And he had made a series of tall case clocks, which there are few examples of them. And I was just in awe of these things. And it hadn't occurred to me at that point that a series was a neat thing to do. But having seen these, it's like, I need to do a series. And wasn't sure what to do. Clocks obviously was out. Somebody had done them. And eventually I hit upon the idea of doing some mirrors. And having recently been in Colorado, I came back to RIT, where I was studying at the time, and made a series of these three mirrors based on some sand paintings I'd seen in Colorado. Co-opting culture at that point hadn't occurred to me to be a problem. We ended up with an extra day or two at the end of the semester, or quarter at RIT at that time. And I had an extra mirror piece. It had a 12-inch disc cut. And wasn't sure what to do with it, but with this newfound time, I actually quickly made this piece, where I began to find a little bit more of my own voice. And picked up on this and have kind of continued with this for the last 30-some years, taking ideas from this thing. Like, for instance, this, you can see at kind of 2 o'clock and 10 o'clock, it's a partial frame for this mirror. It's got a little part that you could call a shelf, although this one's curved and doesn't fit anything. And so I've kind of pursued those ideas. This was another piece. Again, the mirror is not quite enclosed in the frame. A little bit of a graphic element to the big walnut arms. Here, the useless shelf is returned. And this mirror sort of fits in its frame, except it doesn't because it was reversed. Glass is escaping. Another piece, this one I called Daydreaming in Math Class, kind of picking up on the triangles and circles and things. The shelf is back too, down at the bottom. And to round out that series of slides, sorry, something was just beeping at me. This was a piece I did for one of my books. It's a little more conservative. This was a book about how you could make different projects with a table saw. And the publishers wanted things that they felt more people would be willing to attempt. And sorry, the dog keeps coming in to say hi. Also got into thinking about a different series of mirrors to have a little bit more fun with. And I call these an exercise in character development. These I had up at the Peters Valley, or some of these at the Peters Valley Craft Show, a few years back. And these have just been fun to play with. This one I call Dapper. And you'd think I would remember these. This one is Ready to Go. The idea being that you look in a mirror to kind of see if you're what you look like, and here I've dressed you up. This one was The Artist, which at that Peters Valley show, there was a little girl, maybe 6 or 7 years old, and she looked at it, looked at me and said, "Mom, it's him," which pretty much made it worth the booth fee right there. This is one I did. This is kind of a portrait of my daughter. Gave to her for her wedding. The last one of these slides is called Oh Yeah. And a lot of these ideas that I have, they show up in different ways. This was a piece I did. I've done a number of just pure sculptural pieces. And this one's called Balance. And as I was building it, I had kind of lit on the idea of having a bird to offset the weight of the disc at the other end, and made a stylized cherry bird, a little detail shot of it. And again, circling around the same ideas in mirrors, did a mirror based with, excuse me, a couple birds. We call this one my companion's mirror. You can see some of the same things are in there, the shelf and whatnot. Details of the little carved birds. Simplified that mirror, and this is an ongoing series trying to make some things that would be more appealing to galleries price-wise. If you can see, again, the shelf, little sculpture on the shelf. Taking that idea and doing a turned vase there. And that idea was, again, circling around. I'd done a wall shelf or a wall cabinet a couple of years ago that had a glass vase in it. And just picking up on that idea. This is one I call it my touchstone mirror with just a little cairn. These happen to be rocks from Vermont, where I've spent pretty much every summer, a little bit of every summer in the last 25 years. And I really hoped to get some Delaware River rocks this summer. Not that we'd be taking things from the park. No, that would be bad. But we were in New Zealand earlier this year. I have some rocks from New Zealand that I'm intending to use this way. And kind of coming full circle, this is the latest issue of Woodcraft magazine. It just hit the newsstands last week, and it features one of my carved mirrors. So if you want to learn how to do it yourself and you can't get to one of the classes, chance to learn from the pictures in the magazine. And that is the end. I appreciate you listening. Bruce has come back. I hope next summer we can all be together in the church and listening to it rain outside.
Hey, thanks, Ken. That was great. Thank you so much. Our next presenter is Shinji Otani, and Shinji Otani is going to be presenting from Rotterdam over in Europe. So it's starting to be pretty early in the morning for him. And just a little bit about Shinji that I can tell you outside the bio that I'm going to read for you is that he is the son of Shiro Otani, who has fired our Onagama several times and our Naborigama. And we have a long relationship with Shiro. And Shinji has been a photographer in Europe for quite some time now. So the first sentence of my bio might throw you just a little bit. Shinji Otani was a ceramist in Japan before becoming a photographer. In 2007, he finished his study in photography at the Gerrit Rietveld Academy in Amsterdam. He won the Unseen Dummy Award 2012 from Unseen Photo Fair Amsterdam and selected awards including Epson Art Photo Awards in Germany and Raymond Weil Photo Award in Switzerland and many others. Shinji's work has been exhibited worldwide, including Foam in Amsterdam, Netherlands Photo Museum in Rotterdam, Ibasho Gallery in Antwerp, GP Gallery, Gallery 916, and Post in Tokyo, as well as Datsaifu Temmangu Museum in Fukuoka.
That's
He
a different
provides, yeah. you know, my computer turned off right in the middle of that. So that's a pretty fast finger, but very poor pronunciation. My apologies. He provides images to GQ Japan, Wired Japan, City of Amsterdam, Maison Hermes, and the Dutch Royal House. Welcome, Shinji.
Thank you very much, Bruce. My name is Shinji Otani. And then, yeah, actually today, July 3rd, maybe this is arriving day, I suppose, coming to Peters Valley as a schedule. So it's a little bit of a coincidence. Yeah, so as he introduced, I used to be a ceramist in Japan, and I tried to follow my father's footsteps, let's say. And then I had more than 10 years career as a ceramist. Then after yeah, something happened in Netherlands, and then I switched my career to the photographer. So let's get started. And yes, this year I was planning to do 2 courses in the Finis Valley, and one is about portrait for beginners, another about photo books in 5 days. So this time I have the opportunity to show you my portraits. And this man named Burton, he used to be my boss. I was his printer and darkroom operator after my education in Amsterdam. And then I was originally not a portrait photographer, but he is a very famous photographer as a portraiture. And he just teach me everything about good portrait, lighting, and printing technique, and so on, everything. It was also the time everybody in the industry switched to the digital photography. So I was really in a transition period when I started my career as a photographer. And this is quite a recent picture, like a couple months ago. Show some picture from my fashion pictures. And this is a runway of Amsterdam Fashion Week. And yeah, it's, if you see the fashion show, you know, how the model walks during the show, it's very, very fast. So it's quite difficult to capture from the side, but I just try to do something different from the catwalk pictures. So I just photo from the side. And some picture from my former web magazine, web fashion magazine. I was an artistic director of the label called Treff. And this was for German Institute. Use a former building of the German Institute in Amsterdam. The fashions, but it's not only fashion, it's also about the people as a model. So I would say sort of between fashion and portrait photography. Sometimes do some plays. And I also do some assignments for the magazines, and this was one assignment for GQ Japan. And then he is a guy called Lord March from UK. He's a founder of the racing festival called Goodwood, close to Brighton. And this man is the editor-in-chief of the GQ magazine Japan, very dapper guy. And she is the Queen Maxima, the Queen of the Netherlands. I photograph her sometimes. Different series. I have 2 portraits from one of my latest series, which I made in artist residence program in Japan last year. This is a story about what the Dutch brought to Japan during the trading period, during the Edo period. The Dutch was exclusively had a trade with Japan back in the days. And this is about the story of asparagus. It's one of the things the Dutch brought to Japan. And then, yeah, this canal-ish, like, reminds me a bit of the Dutch landscape. The difference is there's a mountain in this picture. He's a local coffee guy. I mean, running a coffee shop, and coffee is one of the things also Dutch brought to Japan. And I think most of the Japanese people doesn't know the fact, and it's so popular to have good coffee in everywhere if you jumped in. But yeah, oddly, there's a really strong relationship with Dutch trading history. This is another series about a small town in South Germany where had one of the largest nuclear power station. And then this is about the wealth because of the power and then the electricity, and also their insecureness. The actual series is combination with another footage of the found objects or landscape, but I just extract the portrait part. He was a local dentist. Yeah. And some more, like students. Another student was in Sweden, in Stockholm. And this was part of the series of half Japanese, half Dutch kids. Another one. And then I have a bunch of the pictures from the last time I visited the United States during the time like now. And yeah, he's a Russian sculptor in Pennsylvania. These guys are running a barber shop and their customers in Maryland, in Frederick. This is my father had a workshop in Peters Valley, exactly the room where the Bruce is now. And I was helping him. Yeah, that was nice. And yeah, you know, these people, the celebrities, Bruce and Kulvinder. It was the last day, just before we leave from workshop. No, it's totally different series called City Plans, one of my ongoing series, but those are the picture. I also feel a bit of hint of the portraiture. So it's not portraiture, it's not only about the taking picture of the people, but also could be plans of some object or possibly space, something doesn't exist or invisible, could be interesting. So snapshot technique, but in a bit more portrait attitude. And the non-human portraiture, it's one of the series statue of the Netherlands. He's Baruch Spinoza, very famous philosopher. It's just the backside of the city office, Amsterdam. He's Albert Schweitzer, famous doctor. One thing what I like about this picture is the cafe right next start invading the territory of this statues. So the statues become the part of the cafe and people just sit around. This is from a town where I live, Rotterdam. It's the statue of the victim of the war. And another one is close to the Dutch beach. And this one's really awkward because it's middle of the beach and middle of nowhere normally. But in the winter time, there's a mobile skate link coming right next. That's why you have lots of cooling pipe go around the statues. But since statues cannot move, that's why they have to tailor-make those cooling pipes fit to those statues. I think that's really funny. Another one. And actually, these are all did a sort of studio lighting in a location, which is actually very difficult to do. That's why I took the part of each side and then just put it together, merging in a Photoshop. And this is about the one musician. He's a Canadian tubist based in Amsterdam. He's a member of the Netherlands Philharmonic Orchestra. And I photograph him every once in a while for his activities and then albums. But I just want to photograph something a little bit different. And this one, it's in a very famous concert hall called Concertgebouw. And then this is a staircase where all the conductors going down to the concert. So if you're a classic fan, everybody knows about this staircase. It was in the free market. I quite like this picture because the bell and then washing machine, it's kind of circle connection. And then he wearing this leather jacket and then the gowns also have a connection with this second-hand coat right on left side. So it's kind of strange relationship of the space and the man and the instruments. And it's a more like classic approach. It's a room called Champagne Bar in a concert hall. Another some shots in Paris. She's a friend of me doing the model for one assignment. And yeah, just before the shooting, we started to have a breakfast, and I thought, wow, this is nice to shoot just one. So that's what I took. And I want to express something like really alien kind of atmosphere, because she really doesn't have that much expression on her face, especially with this mirror sunglasses. We were in the African district in Paris. Everything's so active, and then we even have this guide guy right on the left side, but she was only the still person in this picture. So I just keep her very, very still. Do I still have time?
You have 1 more minute, Shinji.
Okay, cool. I have a few more pictures. This is Norwegian wedding in Oslo. Some of my colleagues, photographer friends. Another one, very Dutch. One last thing, it's my recent series about portraiture of the Japanese families in Netherlands. Wow. So it's kind of a mixture of the Dutch cityscapes and then very Japanese people, and also sometimes the outfits. Oh my gosh, this is beautiful. Wow. And she's one of the dancer of the Netherlands Dance Theater, like a contemporary dance company. So you can see how muscular she is, but I don't want to see really doing dancing. So I just asking her to keep still. Reminds me a bit like an old Kurosawa movie, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. Thanks.
Hey, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Shinji. Fantastic. Thank you
so
very
much
for taking the time out of your night time to be with us.
Yeah, it's 1:36 a.m.
Wow. You do pretty good that time of night.
Yeah, all right.
That's good. Well, thanks a lot. It's great to see you.
Thank you too. Great pleasure.
Okay, bye-bye. Our next guest instructor is Kulvinder Kaur Dhew. Kulvinder Kaur Dhew received an MFA in painting from the Royal College of Art in London, UK, during which time she was awarded an RCA study grant at ARCO in Lisbon, Portugal. A recipient of the prestigious Finis Fellowship in London, Kulvinder produced large-scale works subsequently collected by MTV Europe, Katsuo Ishiguro, the UK Department of Education and Science, and many others. While head of painting at the School of Art in Dunedin, New Zealand, she began to take an interest in wilderness issues and climate change. Later, while teaching at the University of Malaysia, Sarawak, on the island of Borneo, she undertook a body of works exploring censorship related to the largest forest fires recorded at the time. Kulvinder continues to explore environmental and cultural themes. Welcome, Kulvinder.
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much, Bruce, and Lakota and Peters Valley. Thank you so much for giving myself and other artists the opportunity to present our work. I'm about to share something. Wait, sorry, there we go. Oh my gosh, okay. There we go. Oh, sorry about the tech. The old glitch. My name is Kulvinder Kaur Dhew. It is a Punjabi Sikh name that originates in India. I was born in the UK and have been very fortunate to have lots of cultural experiences. And I try to imbue my work with a certain kind of witness of my journey in my life. And the painting that I'm showing you right now, it's a painting I made in the US on the East Coast in New Jersey. Hello to everybody who are wearing their pajamas right now. All of you, I hope you're all doing well. So yes, I trained as a painter, and I'm going to show you some paintings and drawings and kind of talk 10 minutes. It used to be 15 minutes of fame, but I think, yeah, slowly stretching and reducing. So these first few images are actual shots of paintings that are in various places. And
Kulvinder, I'm sorry to interrupt. We actually can't see your screen.
oh gosh, okay. Can we try something else? Okay, let's try this.
Okay, perfect. We can see it now.
Okay, do you see the actual slideshow?
Yes.
Oh, apologies everyone.
No problem. Thank you.
So, yes, so there's my name, Kulvinder Kaur Dhew. The Kaur is the Sikh bit of my name. Dhew is my family name. Kulvinder is my given name. So the first couple of slides, as I was saying, serve as document. That's how I view what I do. I was very interested in color. I love color. Color to me has a quantum energy to it, and I feel that it can translate things in very subtle ways. Abstraction also. Visual language for me is the way that I like to communicate those kind of things that aren't audio or sensory. My drawings are very different to what you see on the screen right now. They're about gesture, they're about movement. And even though there does appear to be somewhat of a random quality to some of the mark making, each mark, each drip is very considered. They take a fair amount of thinking and reflection to get them to this stage. In my earlier life, when I was training to be a painter, when I was being educated and all of that, there would be lots of room for mistakes. Isn't so much these days, but I kind of, that's okay. So in my paintings, I like to include gesture, but also representational elements. There's an energy that happens for me when there is something recognizable and something that abuts up to the metaphor. And in a painting like this, I see this as not just an event in time. Each movement is lyrical, somewhat like the dancer that Shinji Otani was talking about. But there's movement of velocity, and this becomes a trace for me. In this particular image, you'll see that it's very representational. It's not a photograph. It's charcoal on paper, and I wanted very much to use elements. I wanted to talk about nature using elements that come from nature: paper, charcoal, tree, oxygen, carbon, etc. And they can often vary. My drawings, which I get obsessed by certain projects. At this point, I was very, very obsessed by storms, and I'm looking at an incredibly indigo dark sky out there. I feel a bit Rasputin-ish, if anything. So I challenge myself to just not, actually I don't challenge myself. I do become obsessed by things. I become obsessed by subject matter and ideas that are about what I am doing in the studio as an artist, as a visual artist. I do other things also. The reason I'm showing you these images here is to show the idea of scale. The large piece that you saw earlier was a little bit bigger than me, and it was quite a challenge to get that amount of material, that amount of carbon onto paper. I lost my fingerprints. Sometimes the paintings and drawings are quite emotional. They're not all intellectual. This image that you see in front of you is a image that is repeated. I became very interested in supersymmetry and the idea of how things can appear different just by rotation, alignment, that kind of thing. And so as I was putting together this slideshow, I looked at all the different kind of projects I'm doing. This is a commission piece that I had made, which was about trying to use symbols of the places that I had either lived or visited or somehow had a resonance with me. And so these butterflies come from those places. I may have been an entomologist, actually, if anything, if I had not fallen into this way of life. This is a doodle, a much smaller piece than the previous drawing. The previous drawing was something like 40 inches square. This is a couple of centimeters. I'm switching between metrics, but the reason I wanted to show you this is sometimes the visual languages that I use can often be quite different to the previous kind of thing. I feel that I have different kinds of visual accents, and to make a charcoal homage drawing like this is to pay homage to the place that we live currently. And some of you know what this looks like, this area that we're in right now in northern New Jersey. It's absolutely spectacular, very fortunate. We live in a green bubble. This is a place that some of you who have been to Peters Valley would know very much. It's Hilltop, and it actually lives in New Orleans right now. Somebody acquired this piece during the New Orleans tragedy where the 9th Ward was flooded. Fortunately, this didn't get caught up in that. It's quite poignant for me to think of things that I do in my studio practice ending up in places that allude to the conceptual aspect of what I'm making artwork about. This is me. I included this because I wanted to talk about scale and how sometimes representational images can have very subtle metaphors and meanings. This beautiful creature, the swan, is actually in war mode. It is beauty. It's that terrible beauty that I sometimes get obsessed by, especially when I'm making charcoal drawings. Sometimes the paintings include that. After a couple of years of creating a lot of representational work, I started to ponder the idea of getting more of the sense of the hand in. I didn't want to, I'm not a machine, I'm a carbon-based sentient being. And so my paintings and drawings, my visual work started to talk about that. It's interesting that I'm talking to you via bits and bytes because I am very lucky to be able to use my hands and make a living doing things that I use with my hands. This is a drawing that typifies that idea of trying to get more of the hand. I try to erase drawings. A lot of artists in the past have done that, where in order to create a conceptual idea, it was kind of along those lines. Again, paying homage to places. This is a place that is nearby. Some of the tools that I use are the camera, the lens. And so this was Shinji, you would know this, a long exposure of a waterfall. And it's my idea of trying to stretch time, slow it down, speed it up. I'm very interested in velocity. And I like to use matte, charcoal or paint to try and talk about beauty and the poignancy of all of that, but also at the same time serve as witness to climate change and those kind of issues. Some of these later works are where I spend, they appear to have been done quite quickly, but they're actually longer than it appears. It's like no theater in the Japanese culture. These are tectonic based, I'm looking at time, tectonic based drawings. And I've also continued to create my paintings. This is a fairly recent painting with all the beautiful things that some people are doing in the world to try and figure out how humanity is going to survive. I wanted to allude to that. I had a show planned for this year that got cancelled, unfortunately. So these paintings that I'm showing you right now are 17 seconds and counting, are actually about the launch that happened recently. Unfinished, still working on. Sometimes my drawings are abstract and they're about music. It's about the music of me touching. There's an empathy and, sorry. There's an empathetic response that I want to give myself, but also to you guys. I do believe that artists are mirrors to culture. And so when I apply my hand to these things and then I talk in this visual dialogue, I would hope that there's a certain kind of empathy from me to you, all of you who are watching this. These are most recent pieces. I wanted to show you this because sometimes the work isn't as I want it to be. I should have left it here, but it went to here. And I actually kind of like where it went, but this is just the beginning of a process where I will continue this way of working. So thank you so much for your time and holding space for me to jabber. And I look forward to seeing you all on some of the virtual programming that Peters Valley is organizing at the moment. And I'm also conducting some virtual workshops. So I look forward to seeing you all. Thank you so much.
Hi, can everyone hear me? Lakota?
Yes, we can hear you.
Right. That was fantastic. We have some crazy stuff going on, including a power outage.
Yeah.
So bear with us on our very last presenter tonight, who is Ellen Kaspern. And Ellen Kaspern is a custom furniture maker and graduate of the North Bennett Street School's Cabinet and Furniture Making Program. She owns Ellen Kaspern Design and is a member of the cooperative The Elwood Shop in Concord, Massachusetts. In addition to designing and building custom furniture, she has been teaching woodworking at the North Bennett Street School for over a decade. Ellen demonstrates woodworking techniques throughout New England. She has written articles for Fine Woodworking magazine, and her lessons are featured in instructional videos for their website. Welcome, Ellen.
Thank you. Oops. Start sharing my screen. Okay. Awesome. Thank you, Lakota. Thank you, Bruce. I wish I was at Peters Valley. I was supposed to teach a wooden lantern class the first weekend of June. And Peters Valley is one of my favorite places to teach. And as Bruce said, I'm a furniture maker and woodworking instructor. I'm starting off with this table. I think I make more tables than anything else. And I think this is the only table in my slideshow, but I have been fortunate enough to do the winter residency at Penland School of Craft for the last 3 years. And this is what I did in 2008. I made this. I'm really into color. I'm really into geometric shapes. So this oval table is the outside, the red is actually veneer, which is very thinly sliced wood, and it's dyed poplar. And I applied it to the outside of the oval table that I made. And then to kind of tie in the legs to the apron, I added my own stringing to the legs. And then in this picture, you can kind of see the stringing that I made close up. This is a bud vase I made. And what I do is I take the dyed poplar and I take holly and I sandwich it. So I take a thin piece of the well, I take the veneer, the dyed veneer, the holly, and then the dyed veneer, and I put it in a veneer press, and I glue it all together, and then I can cut off strips on the table saw, and then I can inlay it into different pieces, and I'm just kind of like really into color. So, and then this is a milking stool. So I'm from Pennsylvania, and when you sit on this stool, your two legs and then the leg of the stool actually make a three-legged stool. And so I made this for my niece, and I kind of wanted to have some fun with it. I kind of got into inlaying probably like 5 or 6 years ago. I was doing demonstrations at Old Sturbridge Village in Massachusetts, and I was demonstrating inlaying for an exhibit they were having, and I kind of got bored with the traditional inlaying, and I kind of started having some fun. So I inlaid this ice cream cone onto the top of the milking stool. And then this is a dressing mirror that I made. Again, I'm using the red dyed poplar. I'm sandwiching it between maple, kind of making my, I'm making my own plywood with the maple and the dyed poplar. And then I was kind of playing with, again, I'm into just circles and other shapes. So it was, you know, cutting out the circles to make the dressing mirror. And then the base of the dressing mirror is actually a cutoff from the inside of the dressing mirror of the circle. And it's meant to be, it doesn't hang on a wall. It's meant to sit on a dresser. That's why it's a dressing mirror, and then you can pick it up. And then this is another one that I made. After I made that one, I kind of like got my technique down. So I made another one with walnut and the blue dyed poplar. And then here on this one, the back, you can see I used the blue dyed poplar as the back of this dressing mirror. And then here's a walnut pie safe that I made. I've always been interested in pie safes. And so this one was made to fit in a specific space. They're normally a little bit wider, but this had to fit between a window and a wall. And then I punched a tin using an awl and a screwdriver. So it's close up. It's a series of like different dots and dashes. And I just love the back of this piece. So what I did for the back is I took a board and I resolved it. It's called book matching. So you get a mirror image on the back, and the back panels were actually supposed to be the sides of the case, but I kind of didn't like it as the sides, and they were wide enough to be the back. And I thought I just loved it as the back because you can really see the book matching, and it just really shows off the wood. I'm into domestic woods. I really like using domestic woods for my pieces. And then this, I was trained in traditional furniture making, and actually was trained in like reproduction. So I was asked last summer to make this. It's called the book press, and it was actually used to carry books. So they would put books in, and they would ship them from England to the United States. And this is a reproduction book press from 1710. And so I was given 4 weeks to make this piece for an exhibit at the Boston Athenaeum. It was a last minute piece that they decided to have for this exhibit. So here you can see on the left is the original book press, and this book press is in Canterbury, England. And then you can see the book press that I made for the show. And I was given a bunch of photos and everything in centimeters. I work in inches, so I had to, convert everything, figure out how they construct it. So I spent a lot of time, really poring over the details. And the Athenaeum is using the book press that I made as a free library for children. So if anyone comes to Boston, you can bring a children's book and have it stamped, and you can actually open the book press, put it in the book press, and then a child can come and open the book press and take out a book and take it home for free. So I think that's really cool that it's actually, they're using the piece. And then I was also asked by the Fruitlands Museum to make some chair finials. So I do a lot of things for museums. I like to do a lot of demos, and they wanted something that people could actually come and touch. And so a chair finial is what is on the back of a chair on either side of the chair. And each Shaker village kind of had their own style of finial. So they wanted to show the different chair finials from different Shaker villages. And then you can see here in this, I just took this one off the lathe. It's from Mount Lebanon, New York. It's their chair finial. You can see the drawing that I had to go off of. I didn't have any measurements. So again, just kind of researching, you know, widths, heights, and just making sure each one was proportional to the next. And that was really fun. And again, I just love that people can go to the Fruitlands Museum and actually, you know, pick up the finials and see them. And then this chair here is called the Brettstuhl, a two-board chair. I've always wanted to make one. The legs are tapered octagons. And then again, I'm into geometric shapes. So I designed the back with the circles to play off of the octagon legs. So every maker kind of makes their own back design. The one on the left, I made in 2017. And then when I was researching to make this, I also found out that they're called a Moravian chair. And I've always been drawn to these chairs. And my hometown of Bethlehem, Pennsylvania was settled by the Moravians. So I just thought it was really interesting that I've always been drawn to these chairs. And then here it's also called a Moravian chair. And then the two on the right, I actually made this past winter, and the wood was actually given to me from a student at Peters Valley, Don. He has been in 2 of my classes at Peters Valley, and he gave me the walnut last summer, which was very, very nice of him. And I had just enough to make a pair of the Brettstuhls. So, and then this is what's in Making Matters at Peters Valley right now, my twig lantern. And again, I was asked to make a piece inspired by a piece, and I was given 20 pieces to choose from, and I chose this twig table as my inspiration, and it came from a camp. So I thought, what goes with a table? I didn't want to make a chair. That kind of would have been the obvious thing that goes with the table. And since this twig table came from a camp in the 1930s, I decided a lantern would be really cool to make. And so you can see the twig accents on my lantern. And then it was a part of a show, and I actually made 2. And so you can see here that they are the 2 lanterns and then the table. And then again, that was also at the Fruitlands Museum. And they were really fun to make. And so that was the class I was going to teach this summer at Peters Valley. So hopefully we'll get to do that. And then a lot of times I'm making things for just so that I can teach. And so this past winter, I taught a class, and a 2-day class at Massachusetts College of Art and Design, and we made mitered boxes. So this was kind of me prepping for the class. And then it's just a box. And what happens is you can cut the box apart, and then you'll get a lid, you'll get the top and the bottom. And then I edged the box. Again, I'm into color, so I edged it in Formica. My dad worked a lot with Formica, so I'm just really drawn to that material and trying to incorporate it into my work. Most of the time, these boxes are edged with, solid wood, but I wanted to do something different. And then I wanted to make a box where I actually didn't cut it apart, but I could put something in the box. So this is called the O box, and it's a play on my great nephew's name, Theo. It's actually a box for him, and also on the box with all the O's on it. So it's also inlaid with Formica. And the top, this is the top looking down as a bird. You can drop a coin in and then slide it over. It will fall into the box. And then that whole top piece is actually like a plug, and you can pull it out and then get the coins out. So, and then some bud vases that I've inlaid with Formica. I'm just really into the Formica. So just trying to, different ways to use it. And I really like to inlay in my pieces. And then I'm kind of going back to the beginning now. This is the last piece that I made when I was a student at North Bennett Street. It's a Hepplewhite chest of drawers. I graduated in 2003. Someone had recently asked me what was the hardest piece I ever made, and this is a reproduction. Probably this piece at the time was the hardest piece that I made. And then this is a bookcase, mahogany with glass doors. I made it in 2005. And then this was what I taught last year at Peters Valley. It's a cherry cupboard. It was a really fun class. And I really, really enjoy it. 3 days, a little intense for me, but it was a really great group of people. And then I'm just ending with a picture of myself at the table saw. I love teaching and I love machines. And so I just thought I would end with me so you can see me.
Thank you, Ellen. Can you hear me? Can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes.
I had to stop sharing.
Much, Ellen, for that. One of the things that came to my mind before we close for tonight, when I was watching Shinji's and Ellen's presentations, is Ellen, of course, is from Concord, Massachusetts, is where she is living right now and working. Tonight is the Independence Day Eve, so it's special that way. And I was thinking about the issue of the statues around the country and that very important discussion that the country is involved in right now. And I thought, Ellen, of your finials as the Quaker, or no, the Shaker, as being like miniature statues, you know, giving some kind of a memorialization to simplicity and quietude and so forth. And so in kind of an interesting sort of way, those are for me reminders of something from the past and so forth. And the conversation becomes something about how we look at these things. And for Shinji's presentation on the statues that are part of his photo portfolio, you know, it's an interesting timing coincidence that we're being able to look at his work and think about what's going on here and so forth. And so I just wanted to leave everybody with a huge thank you for joining us tonight. And as we go forward in thinking about these really important issues, hopefully we take the time to consider what artists have to say about this and where art can take us. And I hope everybody has a really fun, enthusiastic, exuberant, and pretty raucous 4th of July weekend. So thank you very much for joining us. Thank you. Bye-bye.